We have put together, I think, the most extensive and inclusive voter fraud organization in the history of American politics.
The fraud in Pennsylvania is very serious. A whopping 450,000 mail-in ballot envelopes were destroyed in Pennsylvania. So it's technically difficult to tell which ballots are legitimate and which are illegitimate, which is clearly intentional. And let's say it's a serious criminal violation of the Constitution. The 450,000 questionable ballots sound serious enough on their own, but that's just the massive fraud that occurred on the visible paper ballots. The latest discovery in Pennsylvania also includes digital ballot counting by the software called Dominion, which is destined to be remembered by more and more people forever, and which we are now seeing revealed to have flipped a total of more than 1.16 million ballots in Pennsylvania alone due to a supposed glitch in the software. If we add up the number of paper ballots and the number of fraudulent digital ballots, that number is over 1.6 million, and that's just the problem we've found so far. We don't know how deep the hole goes. So how was this giant black hole of fraud discovered? We're probably going to spend a little more time discussing this in more detail with you, how this huge black hole of fraud was discovered and what it's all about, since there is a lot of information. I'll try to sort this out for you in the coming days so people can see the big picture. So please tune in again over the coming weeks as the battle unfolds and as Trump moves further and further ahead on the battle between good and evil, and he moves closer and closer to being reelected. Those of you who follow my program and other programs who are revealing the election fraud, you may know that on election day, during the live broadcast of the vote counting process in each state by the major media, some people found that there was a big problem with the live broadcast of the vote counting in Pennsylvania. That is, the number of votes for Trump appeared instantly and dramatically decrease, while the number of votes for Biden increased simultaneously. And you may know that the number of votes for Trump decreasing and the number of votes for Biden increasing, it was the same number. In other words, some of the votes for Trump were shifted to Biden. The screen at the time showed that the number of votes that were shifted was nearly 20,000 votes. By looking at this official data, we are able to find many clues. For example, at the time of 4:07:43 a.m., the total number of votes recorded was 2,984,468, with Trump at 56.6% and Biden at 42%. In the next one, immediately following, which is the 188th record, the time is 4:08:51 a.m., and the total number of votes recorded was 2,984,522, with Trump showing 56% now instead of 56.6%, and Biden showing 42.6% instead of 40%. So in 1 minute, Trump lost 0.6% and Biden gained 0.6%. Many of you may have already seen what's going on. In just 1 minute and 8 seconds, the total number of votes only increased by 54, but Biden's share increased by 0.6%, which, when you convert it, that's a total of 17,932 votes. So Biden got more than 17,000 votes in 1 minute, while there was actually only a recorded increase of 54 votes in that minute. I don't think so. So in that 1 minute, Biden got more than 17,000 votes, but there was only an increase of 54 votes in that minute. So in this case, they are subtracting Trump's votes and adding them to Biden. So when you think of it, that's an extra 35,808 votes that we're talking about for Biden. And that's just one line in the large number of records that have been checked. One question that will surely be of great concern at this point is whether there is a way to find out about these fishy records, and the answer is yes. In the 30 or so states where this Dominion system was used, the problems found fall into two main categories. One is conversion, which is the direct conversion of Trump votes to Biden votes. The other is loss, which is the large number of votes that have quietly disappeared in the process of real-time broadcasting. We can start by looking at the scans that were listed. Pennsylvania tops the list with the most alarming figures. According to the verification, the number of votes that were converted in Pennsylvania was 220,883, while the number of ballots that disappeared was 941,248. The data in some of the most sensitive states at the moment is Georgia, where the recount is underway. 17,407 votes were converted, and 33,574 were lost. In Michigan, 20,213 votes were converted, and 21,882 were lost. More strikingly, in traditionally dark blue states like Virginia and New York, the number of votes converted was relatively small, just over 10,000 each. But the number of votes lost was surprisingly high, with Virginia losing 789,023 votes, and New York losing 623,213 votes. A few important points need to be made here. One is that the batch of data used to check the system came from Edison Research, a source which is being used by almost all of the major media outlet like New York Times website, ABC, CBS, CNN, and NBC for election coverage, and probably many others as well. Number two, all of the conversion data shows that it was Trump's votes that became Biden's votes, all flowing one way with no indication of the opposite. Number three, theoretically, the missing ballot data should contain both sides, but there's no confusion here as to who got more votes and who got less votes at this time. So in my personal judgment, the vast majority of the votes should have been President Trump's votes. Do we see a single mention of this in the mainstream news media? None. Number four, all this data has been backed up and saved and is publicly available on the network and can be viewed and verified. Number five, someone going by the name of Truman Black. We don't know if this is his real name, but it seems likely that this name will go down in history as a thriller for having exposed much of this information. Okay, so now let's do a quick summary of the verification results. And here's what we have. 542,181 total votes were switched to Biden from Trump. And a whopping 2,865,807 votes in total were lost. Think about it. The current vote count is pretty sticky in several key battleground states. There have been more than one state where the difference between the two sides is just tens of thousands of votes, or even 10,000 to 20,000 votes. This total of up to 3.4 million questionable votes will change the election results in how many states? It's worth noting that the primary target of the Truman Black verification was those states that used the Dominion system. It had already come to light in Michigan that 6,000 Trump votes were incorrectly sent to Biden. The defense was that it was staff error. But now we're seeing the fact that 30 or so states across the country that use the Dominion software, they all have an identical large number of mistakes, and they've all gone against Trump, and they've all gone in favor of Biden. Could it be that this was all staff error? Were they all uniformly trained? How else could there be such a high degree of coordination and concealed action? Even the work mistakes are exactly the same. So the conclusion is clear. This discovery is certainly one of the strongest nails in the coffin of Dominion, the vote counting system, and we can be sure that it's not the last one. There are other data world IT gurus who have come to similar conclusions as the same as Truman Black, using different methods. We'll discuss this more slowly with you in future episodes. As of the time of doing this show, the news is fermenting rapidly. Team Trump's attorney, Sidney Powell, retweeted Black's findings, and President Trump himself retweeted this of Black's findings about the huge anomalous data from Pennsylvania. Obviously, Team Trump is supposed to have assembled the manpower to verify and investigate both this discovery and this data, and only after verifying its authenticity will Trump himself and his lawyers release it. In other words, it's unlikely that the relevant evidence has been destroyed. And even if the 450,000 naked ballots in Pennsylvania without the envelope cannot be verified for legitimacy, the fraudulent discovery of this software system, Dominion alone, is enough to restore the original election results in Pennsylvania, and Trump should have won a big victory over Biden in Pennsylvania. In addition, other solid evidence includes more than 2,000 cases that Nevada has already turned over to the Justice Department. The 234 pages of statements from voters compiled in just one Michigan county, produced by White House spokesperson McEnany and so on, which we won't list all of them due to time constraints. All right, now let's discuss briefly one more point. What's especially serious is that the Chinese Communist Party is now faintly visible behind the fraudulent schemes that have been discovered. This is not really surprising, but it will give you a very strong sense of how difficult it will be for Trump to drain the swamp. Team Trump is now faced with a situation where he must win the election quickly, because December 8 is the deadline by which the electoral votes must be determined. To find out the real situation of all the election fraud in less than a month's time, and to send the Biden camp and a large number of people suspected of federal felonies to jail may be difficult to do. That's why I think the strategy Trump should adopt now is to focus on one fundamental focus first, which is to get past the 270 vote finish line in the fastest way possible. As long as this step is successful, the rest of the extensive investigation, verification, and prosecution, and so on, can be dealt with slowly at a later date. Georgia and Pennsylvania are the most critical states at the moment to achieve the goal of hitting the finish line in the fastest way possible. As we just said, Georgia recounted all the votes by hand, which is a big advantage for Trump. If he wins the state successfully, and at the same time wins Pennsylvania, where the legal action is clearly superior, it means that Trump is only 2 votes away from reaching the goal. He only needs to win any one of the remaining 4 states, Wisconsin, Michigan, Arizona, or Nevada, and then he can successfully hit the finish line. Of course, we're not saying to abandon the other states at this point, just that the 2 most prominent and important states in the current situation are Georgia and Pennsylvania. The former is certain to get a clear result in 8 days, that is, on November 20th, while the latter is the state that has so far been found to have the largest scale of fraud, and Team Trump holds the most sufficient evidence. They have launched the fiercest offense on the legal battlefield, which can be called the battle for the Sky King of this election, and is the place where the soldiers will fight. As long as you take these 2 states, Trump is only 1 step away from winning re-election in the true sense of the word. Of course, since it's a war without smoke, the situation on the battlefield is changing rapidly. We cannot rule out the possibility of other major variables, such as delays in Pennsylvania, while in Michigan and Arizona, early and smoothly taking the situation. In short, with relatively limited manpower at the time, a 2-stage, step-by-step approach to thwart the left's bloodless coup attempts first, and then hold them legally accountable, seems a more reasonable approach. Well, that's all we have for you today, folks. Thank you for tuning in to the front page, and we will see you next time.
In with I don't know.